Welcome, welcome to Just Minding My Business. I am so happy that you stopped by today. And I have a question for you. Have you noticed marketing is getting more efficient at things that are less effective? Hmm. Funnels, hacks, and ads dominate the digital world, but they rarely win trust. Tom Schwab says the real opportunity isn't one funnel away, it's one conversation away. Known as the Godfather of podcast interview marketing, Tom has helped over 1,500 thought leaders grow their businesses by leveraging the power of podcast interviews. So get ready to discover how conversations, not campaigns, can transform your brand, your marketing, and your results. Wow. Welcome, Tom. I am so honored to have you here today.
I am thrilled to be here. I think what we're talking about is going to be timely, but also timeless.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, when you talk about funnels, one of the things you talk about is stop chasing funnels and start building real client conversations.
And when I look at that, I'm an engineer by degree, right? So I like automations, all the rest of this, but this idea that everything is a funnel, I think is a simplistic idea that everybody's going to follow the same path, or it's broken in the sense that at least when you pour something in a funnel, it all comes through eventually. Whereas in marketing, it's more like the sales sieve, right? Most of it is leaking out. Only a little of it comes through there. So as I look at it, the best things in life, in my business, have come through conversations, right? If you think about it, your best clients, your best vendors, partners, referral partners, even team members come through conversations. And I think we've been sold this lie that what works on a small ticket, disposable item, right? Where funnels were designed for. Now you can scale this up into, big ticket items. And I think there's a fundamental flaw in there, right? You can build a house out of wood, but you can't scale that up to build a skyscraper out of it. It just doesn't work. And so I believe that conversations work even better, and especially for the higher level, higher relationship, higher ticket items.
Yes, I definitely cannot disagree with you. I love conversations, which is why I do what I do because it just you get that connection, you get that vibration. It's I can't even describe it. It's just a wonderful thing. And even when dealing with issues, they've got us punching buttons, saying one for this, two for this, three for this, and I just think it's so impersonal.
I, I've heard it referred to as proof of life in business or marketing, right? Because now we get these emails, and first thought is, that's AI generated, or I get the robocalls or the
Yeah.
texts, and it's just like my trust or everyone's trust is challenged there. So it's like I want to talk with a person. And
All
the
the time.
bigger the investment, the bigger the relationship sale, the more you need that trust. And that's one of those things that I don't think will ever change, right? It was that way before, and even after generative AI, it'll still be that way. And I think of one of our clients early on, we worked with uh, Gavin Zaklinski of a scheduling company. Now I can't think of the name of the company. It was bought by Squarespace. It was their first acquisition, right? And what made his different? Well, he had less churn, he had more loyal clients because he had built up his entire business um, through podcast interviews, through conversations.
Mhm.
So it was called acuity scheduling, and I used it because it's like I know Gavin, I know his team, I know what they believe, right? Was it better than Calendly or Schedule Once or whatever the rest of them were? I don't know. I never really looked at the other ones because I had that relationship, that trust there. And the other ones, I don't know where they were. They might have been out of Bangladesh, but I liked working with his company. And so I think there's benefits from that today when everything can be automated and done at scale through AI. I think there's something to be said when you can hear from the founder of why they did it, what they believe, what their point of view is. I think that is very powerful to attract the right people and
Mhm.
repel the wrong ones.
Absolutely. And I've used security as well. So I know exactly what you mean. It's when I first looked at it, I liked the way it was set up. I liked everything about it. And I didn't even think about the other ones. And I don't even know the CEO, but I just like the application for sure. But you're so right, Tom. I like talking to people. I've always liked talking to people. My background is in IT, and I did support. So, it was always a conversation with the user, always. And now what I'm starting to see is they want to send you to some knowledge base where you got to read, or they want to do tech support with texting back and forth, which takes 10 times longer.
And if you want to do a race to the bottom, I guess that's the way to do it, right? You
Yeah,
think about the businesses that have the highest reviews, the ones that probably have the highest margins. They're not trying to automate everything away, right? Um, go into Neiman Marcus, you get to talk to somebody, buy from Amazon. No, there's no talking to anybody, right? So one is high volume, low margin, and the other one is high ticket, high margin. So if you want to try doing high ticket sales, high margin sales, long-term lifetime customer value with low ticket tactics, it won't work.
true. So true. So true. Wow. So, why is it the big fish don't swim through funnels and whales never click?
Yeah.
I
That
like
I,
that.
that idea comes from a great book by Bill Troy called Clicksand: How Digital Marketing is Ruining Your Business. And what he pointed to was especially B2B sales, high ticket sales, professional services. Everybody's told, well, just give them a tripwire product, right? They'll buy the $7 product and then you nurture them for 6 months and then you can sell the high ticket item. And he's like, there's businesses that are trying to do that model and wondering why it doesn't work.
Mm,
If that model worked, Boeing would be selling airplanes off of Facebook ads and webinars. Or you look at somebody like Ernst and Young, Bain Capital. There's a lot of different high-level consulting firms that get million-dollar contracts that you really haven't seen them on LinkedIn or Facebook, right? They're not doing all this automated stuff. They're running conferences where they're paying all the money to put on the conference and put their people up there because they know if they can talk with the right people, they get the business. Now, for
mhm,
most of us, we can't put on a conference in New York City and invite our ideal clients, but we can get on the stages of those conferences, or maybe not the in-person conference. I don't want to stand up in front of a stage and talk to 100, 1,000 people, right? I'm an introvert by degree, but I would love to talk with somebody one on one, just like we're doing here, and being able to leverage that so that thousands, tens of thousands of my ideal clients can do that. So it's this idea, are we benchmarking against the lowest the lowest denominator, or are we benchmarking against the highest denominator?
mm,
And it's that idea that big fish don't swim through funnels and whales don't click, right? If you're trying to reach a high level, C-level executive, they're not going to click your download. They're not going to buy a tripwire product. They're not going to be nurtured, right? If they want to talk to the wizard, they want to talk to the wizard, right? And that's how you get the big deals, not through funnels.
Wow. I am so happy to meet you because everything that you stand for, I have to agree 100%. It's those conversations that build everything. The word of mouth is king.
It is. And today, word of mouth can mean so many different things, right?
Yeah.
It used to be, well, I go to church with this person and they told me, or my kids go to school, or we're in the Chamber of Commerce together. Well, today, Ida, you're telling everybody about me and Interview Valet, right? Because you've sort of vetted all your guests, right? And you say, before I'm going to introduce them to my audience, I know who they are. It's almost like in the mob, right? I vouch for them. And so it's that word of mouth. And, right now we're recording this in 2026. There's somebody in like 2029, 2030 that's listening to this and still getting the information. Whereas if we were, just in a physical stage, if somebody wasn't there, if somebody had to walk out for a conversation, if somebody wanted to share it with someone else, they couldn't.
Yes. And you're so right because on my platform, I do have people going back to years ago, stuff that I recorded. And then I had one person that I interviewed call me and say, can you remove my interview because I no longer do that business? I was like, okay.
I had a sales call with somebody that had heard me on a podcast, and it was 2024. And their first question was, when did you grow the beard? And I was thinking, let's see, that'd be 2019, just before COVID. They had seen me on a podcast in 2018. They had listened to it. They were like, this is the company I want to work with. Fast forward 6 years, I couldn't remember what I talked about there, but that person was so sold on how we saw the world, how we helped people, how we helped them not just, break through the noise, but build trust. And he expected me to look and sound the same. And so I think that's that whole trust thing there that's just amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Tom, how can people connect with you?
Well, I know that with podcasts, people are multitasking. So we've done studies, and this is always the easiest way. Send them to one place, make it easy. So you can come back to interview valet with a v.com/Ida, IDA, right? You'll remember that because that's who you came to hear today, not me. And I was just fortunate enough that Ida introduced me. There's an assessment there. Will podcast interview work for me? I've got a book that I wrote. You can buy it on Amazon, or you can get a free copy there. I'll mail you a copy or email you a copy. And then finally, if you'd like to have a conversation with me, right, I'll put all my social media, my calendar link, all of that will be back at interviewvalet.com/Ida.
Oh, that's so sweet, Tom. And just so you guys know, Tom sends me a lot of people. I stay busy because of Interview Valet. So I thank you for that, Tom.
We appreciate all you do, Ida.
Yes, indeed. Wow. Okay. Podcast guesting is more than marketing, it's authority building for sure. And what's your thoughts around that?
Well, I think a lot of times with podcast guesting, right, people will say it doesn't work. And it it's because they're using it like a hobby, right? There's
Mhm.
no strategy behind it. They're just doing a lot of activity. It's almost like social media. If you post one thing on social media and say, well, social media marketing doesn't work, you weren't doing marketing, right? So I think there's a big difference between just guesting and doing it as a hobby and really having a strategy behind it. And that's what we've really worked on over the last 10 years of how can you get more out of every interview, not just do more.
Yes. And I am and encourage people that I interview is to use your interview We give our shorts. We have shorts available for people if they want it, and so that way you can keep promoting that one appearance. I mean, I've had people use it for TED Talks, all kinds of different things. And like you said, some people don't have a strategy around it. They just get on and they think, oh, okay, I did an interview on a podcast, and that's the end of it. But that's actually the beginning.
It is. That's the beginning of the relationship and keep that conversation going. And some people will
Yes.
say, well, the host promotes it. Yes, the host does promote it, and the guest should also, right? If
Yes.
you thought enough of that interview, if you thought enough of the audience, why wouldn't you want to keep promoting that? And I think it's one of these things where I remember some marriage counselor once said, if both people do 50-50 and everything goes perfectly, you get to 100, right? But if both people are trying to do 100, man, you get to 200. So I look at that is yes, the host is going to promote that, but the guest, you should be committed to promoting that yourself. And it's one of these things where it doesn't take more of your time. You don't have to do more interviews. You just have to do more with your interviews.
Absolutely. Wow. Well stated. Well stated, because I really try to get people, and some people I can say do. And I'll see it on LinkedIn. They'll post it on LinkedIn, and then I'll piggyback and say how wonderful it was to talk to that person. And I learned so much. But I see a lot of people that don't. And I don't get it. I mean, whatever you put your face and your brand on, you should be promoting it.
From a integrity standpoint, I would totally agree with you. Now I'm going to go and do it from a number standpoint, right? During the election, they kept saying Joe Rogan gets heard by 100 million listeners. Every news outlet would tell you that. And I started to think about that and I thought, 100 million, that's like half of the adults in the United States. And I
Mhm.
thought, there's no way half the adults in the United States listen to a 3 hour podcast. So we license all the databases and I looked it up. Ida, he gets 2.5 million downloads per episode on average, right? That makes
Wow.
him the number one podcast. Those other 98 million, they're listening to a 90-second clip of Elon Musk and going, oh, yeah, I listened to that interview, right? And to them, they did. And so guests can do that. Why would you not want to promote that if you know
Mhm.
that 98% of the people that are going to hear you are going to hear you from a short clip? It just seems like
Yes.
it's more, once again, podcast guesting, where it's just all about activity, or podcast interview marketing, where you've got a strategy to get results.
Yes, and you must have a strategy. My strategy when I interview people, I want as many people to hear your content as possible. Now, in the podcast world, it takes time to grow to that level. And what I found is consistency is king, because once people begin to see you on a regular interval, then they look forward to it. And it takes time, it's consistent, because I remember when I first started, I had nobody. I was ready to interview somebody's grandma because I didn't have anybody. And then it was like, well, do you have a niche? And at that time, I didn't even know what a niche was. But what ended up happening was the guests created the niche. It was weird how it worked out for me, but the guests created it.
And you had to work through that to find it. And the
Yes.
sad part is that the data says that 80% of podcasts die within the first 10 episodes, right? It's easy to start a podcast. It's really hard to keep one going, to
Yes.
consistency, right?
Yes.
Showing up consistent. And it's funny, it's like all of a sudden you do it for long enough and then you become this overnight success,
Yes.
right? They don't see all the work that went into it. And I always say anybody that says doing a podcast is easy has either never done it or never done it well, right? The great ones make it look easy. It's like playing football on a Sunday afternoon. It's like, oh yeah, I want to make millions and play a game for 2 hours. You don't see all the work that went into that,
True.
right? All of that. So that's part of the reason that when we started out for the first 8 years, I was just doing guesting, right? Because being a host was a lot of work and I'd rather tap into other audiences. It wasn't until about 8 years in that we started our own podcast. And that was really just focused on for our internal clients, right? They'd have questions and I'm like, well, I could tell them the answer, but I'd rather bring in an expert and address that. And so, I was never looking at download numbers. I was looking at how can we use this to serve our current clients.
Yes, and that's what I look at. I don't look at download numbers. I look at value for the people that listen, the
Yeah.
people that see you. What kind of value are they going to bring to my audience?
Yeah. There's two ways to look at podcasts. And I've thought about this. You can either view it as a megaphone or a magnet,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm not going to say one is right and one's wrong, but there are people that say a megaphone is just about how much noise can I make, right? How many people can I talk to? There's no strategy behind it. It's just all over, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of fame. It's a lot of ego. It's a lot of playing to somebody's vanity. I look at podcasts as more as a magnet, right? To attract the right people and repel the wrong ones,
Yeah.
right? So often the sale is the sample. If you listen to me and go, I love Ida, but Tom, no, I don't resonate with him. Well, that's fine. Doesn't mean I'm bad or you're bad. But if you don't like the marketing, if you don't like the sale, you won't like the delivery, right? So those people, I don't want to bring them into my funnel and, nurture them forever, right? If I can give you any value, that's great. But what I want is those people that says, I've never looked at the problem that way, right? Or I've never thought of that solution. He's telling me things that I haven't seen before, right? Interview valet sounds different, not just claiming to be better. And those are the people that you want to attract.
Yeah.
The better the marketing, the easier the sale.
True. Very true. And for me, I don't like hot seats. I want people to come and be authentic. And I feel like when we have that conversation as if we're sitting around the kitchen table, just chit chatting, I think people become a lot more calm. They want to share more, and their true being just shines right through. It just shines right through. So
And
the
you were
hot seat, I don't like.
you were so spot on there because, we'll even call it a podcast interview. It's not an interview. It's a conversation, it's a discussion that's caught on a podcast, right? When I think of
Right,
interview, I think of, somebody interviewing to be the new busboy at Denny's, right? The manager's asking them the same five questions. Nobody wants to listen to that,
right.
right? But the conversations is where you're sitting down in Denny's and the booth behind you, they're having this great conversation. And you almost want to turn around to get in on it, but that'd be rude. But you just want to sit there and listen to it, right? Because it's interesting. And that's what I think the magic of these conversations are.
Yes, it's very magical. And for me, being a host, I always take something away. Always take something away from every last one. And it's like some people that's been on my show, it's like I got an asterisk by their name because whatever they were talking about really fascinated me. I'm not quite ready yet, but when I am ready, I'm going to call that person.
Or even maybe I'll never be ready. But you know what? I know someone that is.
Yes,
And if they made an impact me on a podcast, um, I can share it with someone. And we worked with someone early on, and they were trying to market to first-time parents before they had the baby. You're talking maybe a 7-month window there. And they were having such a hard time finding them. And then what they were able to do was to go on to podcasts where first-time parents were listening, right? And it could be ones that are talking about what to do with 2-year-olds or whatever. And they would talk about this, and they'd always put that call to action in and said, if you know somebody that's going to be a first-time parent, and you think this would help them, if it'd be a blessing to them, can you share it with them? Guess what? The people in that age demographic, they know other people.
Yes.
And it's one of these things where if a friend tells you, Tom, I was listening to this podcast, I thought of you, it was minute 7, right? The chances of me listening to that podcast go through the roof, right? We've had people that say, I want to talk with Fortune 500 CEOs. Well, I'm sorry. There's not a podcast called The Fortune 500 CEO with 500 downloads a week, right?
Right.
And chances are those people aren't listening to podcasts, but you could say, who is influencing them, right? Who has their ear? What shows are they listening to? And those are the conversations that can go viral. And I don't mean viral by how many likes they have, but
Mhm.
when it's like you hear it in the morning, and then it comes up in conversation at a meeting, and then it comes up at lunch, and then you're talking to your spouse on it that night. Boy, there's an idea that has jumped from one platform to the other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know exactly what you mean. It's like you hear something, somebody says something, and next thing you hear it somewhere else, then you hear it somewhere else. And then that really gets you perked up. It's like, okay, this is like my third time hearing this. This must mean something. For sure. I know exactly what you're talking about. So, near bound marketing, the future beyond inbound and outbound. What does that mean?
Yeah. For the longest time, people would say, oh, we got to do outbound marketing, right? Send lots of emails, or inbound marketing. We'll do a lot of content and draw them in. There's a phrase that has come up now that's called nearbound marketing, right? Why not just go to where the people are and market through that, right? So if you know your audience goes to um, the Rotary Club, right? Then you should probably be talking at the Rotary Club, right?
Mhm.
If you know that your referral partner is physicians, right? You should probably be talking to the physician. So it's this near bound. The reason I'm on this podcast and not one for first-time parents is because we don't help first-time parents. We do help business owners, entrepreneurs, those people that are trying to take their business to the next level. So, Ida, you're a micro influencer in this community, right? No one came onto this podcast thought Tom Schwab's going to be on the podcast. I love him. I follow him, right? No, they come here because of you and the relationship you have. So this near bound is like, how can I get closer to you, get that transfer of trust and authority for you so that I can communicate? And I really think, marketing, there's a lot of different definitions, but to me, it's always, how do you start a conversation
Mhm.
with someone that could be a great client? So that's where nearbound comes from.
Yes, and I like that term, near bound marketing. I'm definitely going to put that in my things to say. I like the way that sounds, and it makes sense, And I think what happened a lot of times, the pandemic has everybody kind of made everybody just do the screen. And the
Yeah.
screen is fine because, I mean, with that, I've been able to interview people from all around the world, whereas it was convenient, and it was cost effective. But
Hmm.
sometimes you got to get out and meet people. You just have to do that. You need to go where your people are.
Yes.
Go to your tribe, find your tribe. Wow, this has been amazing. So, again, Tom, how do businesses come to you and get interviewed or get scheduled for an interview, or how's that work?
Yeah, just the easiest way is just come back to interviewvalet.com/Ida. And I'll put my contact information there. We'll have the assessment. You can get a copy of the book and you can get see my calendar there. Love to talk with you, see how we could help you. One of the ways I signed all of my emails is stay strong. The world needs to hear you now more than ever. I say that to encourage other people, but also to remind myself.
Yes, yes. And right now we need all of us working together. We definitely need all of us working together. Oh, I'm so honored, Tom. This has been an amazing conversation. And definitely, I've taken quite a few things away for me. And I know that my audience has as well. So I'm looking forward to doing this again because your energy is great. Our energies match. So that's always great. So I look forward to doing this again, Tom.
I look forward to it, Ida. Thank you so much.
And thank you, audience. We love you too.